Are rolling again. All right, and we're back. Okay, guys. Looks like Facebook did not like my Irie Christmas music. They said copyright violation. So looks like we're not going to be able to listen to cool music on these live casts, unfortunately. But it's no big deal, guys. Sorry about that. Looks like my power at my house went out for about 5 minutes. And so we're just going to pick up the live cast again. I apologize. Probably going to have to get a backup power supply here at the house. But no matter. I'm just going to post this link. Give me 1 second and I will be right back. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we're able to get people back into the new cast. Yep, I see some of us are back. Again, guys, apologies for that. The internet here just totally gave out. Unfortunately, sometimes happens in Medellin, Colombia, but we will be getting a backup power supply so that does not happen again. All right, so we're going to pick this up. We're going to pick it up. We're not going to waste any more time. Let's get back into our context around Scholar and studying the way that this product works. So let's start by looking at the first subscore, which is our content clarity subscore. So content clarity is all about making sure that our content doesn't have unnecessary words and fluff in it. Ultimately, when we think about language, we think about our paragraphs. Paragraphs and language in that context is really meant for human consumption. But I bet you that if I deleted certain words, let's take this sentence for example. If I deleted the word is and to, you would still probably be able to read and understand it, right? There are words in this that are not important that can be deleted. If you can delete words and reduce the total amount of text that the search engine has to process, while increasing the amount of factuality and the value of that content to the search engine, that is a winning strategy, okay? So content clarity in Scholar is all about evaluating that. The next component is factuality, right? That's what we're looking at. And as we looked at in the cast before, we saw how many patents there were about factuality, about facts. And we really understand that the search engines are very interested in what are the facts that this document is advocating, that is contributing to our knowledge graph. If a document doesn't have any really interesting or useful facts, or it's light on facts and it's got a lot of fluff with very, very little factual information, guess what? That's not going to rank well. What you need to do is create a lot of factuality in the content that is semantically related to the query. I'm going to say that again. You need to create factuality in your content that is highly relevant to the query. When we think about relevance to the query, we're thinking about the contextual, the distance, the cosine vector distance between your query and the semantic triple. And so very important that when we're putting our facts into the content, that they are in some way relevant to the query. A great way to do this is question and answer format. The question and answer format is one of the most powerful formats for content on the internet. Questions are almost like the most efficient way to communicate the idea and get the response, right? For an answer engine, giving them questions and then the answer to the question is one of the most effective and efficient ways. There's actually entire patents that only deal with the question side of this, where they're looking at questions and they're looking at headings that are questions. And so one of the things that we see in content that's able to rank really well, especially informational content, is that it's got a lot of questions inside its heading structure. And so when you do that, you will boost these. The other thing I want to talk about are numerical triples. So instead of saying there are several ways to fix a roof, right? It's actually better to say there are 7 ways that we improve roofs at Manick's Roofing Company, okay? It's better to be precise than to be non-specific, right? Google wants to know what is the actual number. Instead of saying there are many ways to do this, be specific about the total number of ways. The more specific you are, the more to the point you are, the more direct you are in the way you answer the question, the better your rankings will be, the easier it will be for Google to analyze and process the information in your content. Okay. Often I see a lot of the AI content doesn't have good numerical triples. You need to have at least 2.5% to 5% density. That is really the target score for these numerical triples. And I'm going to zip down here to look at your numerical score, which is how many numbers are you putting in to the content, right? That is a context that I don't see many people aware of in the field of AI content generation, and it's important. All right, let's go back up. Let's look at the next score, which is human effort. So human effort is all about showing Google that this content, we actually had to take humans and do something novel and useful here beyond just a word vomit wall of text that anyone can crank out of ChatGPT or Claude. So when we think about human effort, Google are looking at a couple different things. They're looking at lists. This is more of like a structured data format inside the content. And so when you use UL and LI in content, you are creating a structured list, which is really good for the search engine. They like to see novel and interesting HTML structures. We call that semantic HTML. They're also looking at tables. How many tables are in your content? Are you providing information that is structured in tabular format? That also makes it easier for the search engine to parse and process the data. The images. What images are you using? And by the way, in these images, are you using EXIF data? Have you added metadata, or are you just AI generating images? Fun fact, you guys probably didn't know this, but we figured out that we need to add the EXIF data to the images. Big part of local SEO, really important when publishing Google My Business profile posts or uploading photos to the Google My Business. It's better when those images contain the EXIF data. What is EXIF data? Well, EXIF data is all the metadata that gets added into the image by whatever camera took and generated that image. If you look at EXIF data from AI generated images, and actually I posted this somewhere in our group so people could see it, you'll see that they're super light on the metadata in those AI generated images versus your iPhone. If you take an iPhone image and you analyze the EXIF data in the iPhone images, you'll see that they're chock full of a whole bunch of really interesting metadata and some boring metadata. But some of the interesting things are the latitude, longitude, the GPS location of the device that took the photo. That's why when you go to your Photos app on your iPhone, probably even it's on the Android, you'll be able to see a map of the world where you took all these photos. How do you think they do that? They're looking at the EXIF data in the images which they've tagged with the latitude and longitude. That's how they're doing that. The EXIF data also includes the aspect ratio of the image. It includes the aperture of the lens in the camera when it took the photo. It includes the ISO that the image had when it was taken. It includes copyright information. It includes the device on which the image was taken. It includes so many other interesting pieces of metadata. Now, when we're looking at human effort, we want to be able to see that the images on the page are high quality and that they contain EXIF data. Very, very useful to add to pages. And if you add them to pages, you're more likely to be able to get those pages ranking. Okay. Next, let's look at videos. So having videos on the page, really important. When you add videos to the page, I'm just going to confirm you guys are able to hear me and that everything's working. Seems like it's fine. Just got a call from Fidan. So, all right, we'll just continue. So adding videos to the page increases the amount of human effort for the content. Natively, AI content doesn't include those images or videos. And so that is one of the ways that Google is able to see that you're putting more effort into your content and it increases your human effort score. And then finally, schema markup. Schema markup, very important, very valuable. When you add schema to the page, which you can do with auto, by the way, that improves the human effort score. So there are many different kinds of schema. I think there's about 5,000 different kinds of schema. Auto is able to generate many, many different kinds of schema that are very useful. Organization schema, also, we're adding in more localized organization schema. So if you're a doctor, there's a special schema for doctors. If you're a lawyer, there's a special one for lawyers, dentists, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. So using those schema types is better than just using the plain vanilla organization schema. And that's a way to boost the human effort score of your page. There's also other schema types related to entities that we embed using Auto for you automatically. So when you run Auto on your website and you do knowledge-based trust embedding or the semantic analysis and knowledge-based trust boosting, it's going to add all that schema into the page as well. The FAQ schema, the like or same as schema as well. And there's actually more schema types we're going to be adding, especially for e-commerce stores and for local businesses. And we're going to keep adding more and more page-specific schema types as well for like a recipe page or an FAQ page and so on and so forth. So including all this will boost your human effort. The next score we're going to talk about is information gain. And this is really important because Google already has a lot of information in it. And if you want to rank for something that they know a lot about, like let's say dehydration, for example, you better have something that is unique and valuable. You better have the same triples that your competitors have, but also some unique triples that are beyond what they have. And so the more unique information that we can add into the page, the better our likelihood is to be able to rank, because Google is going to see that actually these guys have an interesting context that we don't have, interesting information that we don't currently have in our search engine, which makes the website more insightful, more interesting. Even if you're just taking the other triples that are already in the SERP results, and we analyze them for you here, where you can see all the facts, all the triples that the competitors, the other guys ranking in Google, that they've put out there, you want to make sure that on your domain that you include these triples somewhere, either in this document or a different document. The more facts that we have on our domain, the more likely it is that Google will see us as a highly relevant knowledge, a trusted source of knowledge for this particular knowledge domain. That is something we call knowledge-based trust. There's a patent that they wrote about that where they use knowledge-based trust to rank websites. I believe knowledge-based trust is essentially the same quantitative framework around topical dominance and topical authority, okay? So information gain, going back to that, really important if you can provide new information that is not already out there. The next factor, the next thing we look at is content freshness. How old is the content on Google? How long has it been around? And there's something that is really interesting. I see a lot of SEOs talk about this. They say, instead of creating new content, go back and update old content. And then they show their examples of like, oh, we updated this document and then rankings went up. They actually didn't just update the text. They updated two things. They updated the content and they updated the timestamp of when that article was last modified. That timestamp is embedded in your sitemap and in your landing page by default by your CMS like WordPress. And so Google's able to see, according to your content management system, when was the last time this content was manipulated and modified. We did a case study where we took a whole bunch of documents, a whole bunch of articles on some of our test sites, and we didn't change the content. We just simply updated the last modified timestamp to be more recent. And boom, rankings went up. Why is that? Because part of that Google caffeine algorithm is they're looking for recent content. They want to see content that was recently updated. And so when we are looking at what's ranking in Google search results, we're also interested in what is the date of publication. Now, for some documents, some topics like dehydration, people have been getting dehydrated since cavemen, right? So dehydration as a topic has not really changed a lot in the last gajillion years. So it's not that, you can see from the search results here that the second ranking document is Wikipedia that was updated last in 2002. And so recency is playing less of a factor of ranking within this context. But when you look at current events, something like the Olympics, something like a sports match, right? The last modified timestamp is actually very important because they know that this is a topic that is in real time changing, right? Breaking news, that's another real time changing topic. And so the more frequently you update that content, you will actually see the rankings will go up. But this is a universal principle across the board that one of the ways you can boost rankings on your site today, my friends, just try it. Go to your site, go to some of the articles that are ranking page 1, page 2, just update the timestamp. Just go in and click save, make sure WordPress updated the last modified timestamp, and I promise that you will get more traffic. I promise you. Do it, report back, okay? How many of you guys are actually going to do that? Please pop into the chat. I'd love to know who's going to actually take this and implement it. All right, I want to see you guys implement these ideas. I want you guys to prove it to yourself. I want you guys to learn and see this, okay? I'm gonna take a quick break to answer Coach Cav's question. What does triples mean? A triple is really just a fact. It's simply a fact. So think about a triple. There are two kinds of triples, entity, attribute, value, subject, predicate, object. But to simplify it, all a triple is a statement about a entity, something in the world, and its attributes. So it could be something like Manick was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Like Manick is 37 years old, right? Search Atlas is a SEO software platform or AEO software platform, right? These are facts. And the technical term for those are triples, okay? That's how they're referred to inside Google's patent literature. That's how the scientific community that studies this refers to them. And when we look at the Google Knowledge database, their knowledge graph of over 50 billion facts, those are called triples, okay? Cool, looks like you got it. Awesome. All right, we will continue then. Let's look at the next subscore, user intent alignment. So I guarantee you something. If page 1 of Google is all informational, right, and you come in there with a different content format that doesn't align with what Google has determined to be the most relevant content format, you might have a hard time, okay? It might not be so easy. Now, for queries like this, like dehydration, this term has been around a long time. There's a lot of historical data, and likely what Google is seeing is that these documents that are here have a very high satisfaction score. So Google realizes that, you know what, the users that search for this, they're pretty happy with the documents they're seeing. They get their answer, and then they close the browser, and they move on to the next thing. They don't hit the back button. They're like, I still don't really understand dehydration. I don't really understand what is dehydration. I don't get it, right? And so this is an example of a query where likely they're pretty happy with the search results that they have and the information content styles that they have. But one thing you'll see is sometimes for certain queries, especially queries, I'll take an example of call center software for a client that we were working with. We actually saw that the content type shifted over time. They used to be service providers and they shifted very heavily into the review format. When that happened, when that took place, they saw that the review format outperformed the service provider format. And so they realized that actually the query context that the user is they're in a commercial context where they're evaluating multiple service providers. And so the most valuable information that they could present are listicles, comparison articles, and guides. And so you can actually learn a lot about the content type format that you need to align with by looking at this. We score your alignment with the most dominant content type. If you pick the second most dominant content type, you will still get a very good score. I actually think sometimes it's better to be different, right? To try something a little bit different, because going back to my presentation where I was talking about being the best document in your cluster, a lot of times the way that we do that is by stepping away from this cluster and sometimes making our own cluster with a different perspective or a different document type than what else is already out there. Google, I expect, is going to be doing this more and more because what they don't want are copycat AI replicas of what's ranking number 1, number 2. They want to see something a little bit different, that is new, that is better than what is already on page 1. So that is user intent alignment, aligning with the informational demand of the user. That's the technical term. Next, entities. So I think at this point, in terms of where we are in this chapter of the SEO industry, everyone has understood that we need to include these entities on the page. And so when we think about the term dehydration, these are entities inside Google's knowledge graph that they understand in the network of information, where dehydration is at the epicenter of that network. These are all subnodes that are connected to that central entity that is dehydration. And these are other relevant entities that are part of that graph. And so going back to that patent that I presented earlier in the live cast, we know that including these entities is an important part of how Google figures out which documents are relevant for the query and which ones are not. And so already, if you're using Search Atlas, you're already using our Content Assistant or Content Genius tool, which shows you the entities that you should be including. And when we AI generate content inside Search Atlas, it AI generates the content including these entities, including the information gain that we've already done with our algorithms. We're very happy with the entities that we're able to put out there. This content, had it been generated with Search Atlas, I expect likely the entity score would have been higher, probably another 10 to 15 points higher. We typically see our entity scores are an average of like 85 to 95, somewhere in that zone. And that is very good. That is really good. Just to note that it's not important to include every single term a gajillion times, right? It's really important to make sure you're using the entities in a way that is natural and organic and aligns with these other best practices in here. So what we're really trying to do is to go beyond the entity scoring, which is what everyone is doing. That is what Surfer does. That is what the Neuron Writer guys do. That's what really pretty much everyone that does entity scoring does in the content, is they will just score your content based on the entities. However, entities are just one tiny piece of the overall equation, okay? So just remember that. It's not just entities, although they're very important. If you're using Auto will embed these entities into the page for you programmatically. So if you've got content, let's say you got a client you're inheriting, they got a whole bunch of content on their website, let's say maybe 10 pages, maybe 10,000 or 1,000,000 pages. You can programmatically optimize all of those pages and embed all the missing entities in using Auto. It's incredible. And when you do that, you will see incredible gains in rankings. Long live programmatic and dynamic SEO. Okay, on to the next subscore, which is contextual flow. So you guys remember that visualization? I'm going to go back to it here to show you guys if you guys have forgotten. This is that visualization about contextual flow, okay? And so when we look at the query and the first query context that we're in, the first contextual zone, this has a very low semantic distance from dehydration to what is dehydration. You can see how close it is. The distance there that is measured is basically your score. So the lower the distance, the higher the score. One thing you'll see is we're starting with this table of contents heading, which then goes into what is dehydration. So this, obviously there's a high distance here, but I wouldn't really worry about it, okay? What we're working on doing is clipping these off because they're not really a part of the primary contextual zone. But the algorithm right now today is still going to include that. So just ignore that and focus on these ones in the middle. And you can see when you go from your first heading to the second heading and you're keeping the contextual flow high, you're moving into one logical topic into the other and you're not jumping around. And so that's how we get high scores here. This is really important. We saw a lot of fascinating patent literature about how do they evaluate this. I actually put some of those patents into the presentation, so if you guys are interested in the evaluation criteria of that, you can see more about it. But essentially what we're doing here is we're running a similar algorithm to go from your heading to the next heading to the next heading on the page, okay? Numerical score, we covered it already as a part of the triple conversation, but to touch on it lightly again, what we're interested in here is the density of that numerical information inside the content. The numerical triples are very important. You do need to have them. If you're saying things like there are many ways to skin a cat, it's better to say there are exactly 5 ways to skin a cat. Number 1, and then you explain, right? The first way to skin a cat is A, then B, then C, then D. But much, much, much better to say 5. Just so you guys understand, there are algorithms that Google use to post-process your content. They take your content, they run it through algorithms to then help them take that, there are several ways, and to make it into a numeric, okay? So if your content already does that, if it eliminates the fluff, if it incorporates the facts using the most efficient content language possible, those algorithms have just less work to do. And that will boost your information retrieval score for your web pages and boost your rankings intrinsically. Now, we're obviously trying to do this programmatically with our AI content generation, but I'm just breaking it down for you guys so you understand what the goal is. The next one is query relevance. So this is looking from the user's query to the page. What is the relevance score? If you have everything else right in your content, but your title tag and your page URL and your primary heading doesn't align to the user's query, well, your query relevance is going to be diminished and you're going to have a much harder time ranking. And so that's why, even though people say title tags are important, we got to update our titles, it's actually not just the titles, it's also the URL and the H1, because those are a core part of what they're measuring when they're going from the query vector to your title, URL, and H1 vectors. So those are the first things we think about, is the semantic distance between the query and those primary attributes of the page, okay? Next, we get into readability. So readability is actually kind of important because a lot of times in the AI content that's coming out of LLMs, we see that the readability scores, they're just too high level. And for most query contexts that are non-scientific, that are more your average everyday user, right? Like, you know, you think about like your mom, or you think about your kids, or you think about your friends, like, or even just think about yourself and your team. When you're going to Google looking for information, you want to get that information in a manner that is easy to digest, okay? I would say probably over time, readability has become more important because people's attention to detail has gone down. I know very few people that actually read books anymore because they don't want a book. They would rather read the SparkNotes version. They don't want the SparkNotes. They're just like, give me the tweet. Don't give me the tweet. Give me just like the 2 bullets about what it is, right? They just want it to be simplified. And so the language that we're using is very important. And this is actually an area that we're really focusing on. You can see what's ranking really well. You can see within this content that there are parts that are first grade reading level and parts that go up to the college level reading level. And it's always better to kind of keep it to the 8th grade level, I would say. First grade is not, we don't need to write for kids. Like, this isn't Dora the Explorer, right? But make sure you're writing with the right readability level for the audience that you're approaching. And I would say for almost every context, unless you're a scientific type of domain with very, very unique type of content that is like that, you want to be writing at a level that is comprehensible to an 8th grade audience, okay? All right, so those are our subscores that we covered inside Scholar. I'm going to show you guys really quickly how to get there and navigate it. So when you guys step into Search Atlas, you're on the home page. Next, click on Content, then click on Scholar. And here you go. When you're in Scholar, you can set your target keyword and your target landing page. You can also plug in a Google Doc. That is acceptable as well. You'll see some of the documents we evaluated were Google Docs. This is an example of a Google Doc export from Search Atlas that we evaluated that got quite a good score. You'll see it's got images in it. Those images have alt text. There's good exif data in those images as well, and good headings as well. And so this is the Scholar score for that article. The reason we put it into the Google Doc so we can import it into Scholar. We don't yet have Scholar scores inside the Content Genius, but we will be adding that soon. Okay, so have fun with this one, guys. We are going to continue to be doing a lot of work on the algorithm side, especially on evaluating and benchmarking our content versus competitors, and basically optimizing our models. One of the things that we're really keyed into is this concept, and I want to just explain this slightly here, that if you want better LLM outputs, if you want the best quality content, there are 3 levers that we can pull on. The one that everyone already knows about is prompt engineering, right? Is engineering our prompts that we're putting into the LLMs to make them better, to make them more specific. And so we do a lot of prototyping with prompt engineering, a lot of changes to our prompts. But that's just one pillar. A lot of times you can get pretty far with that, but that's not it. You need also RAG. We touched on it in this live stream as well, that bringing in dynamic knowledge from external data sources outside of just the LLM itself is a really powerful way to get better outputs. How can we do that? Well, you can use Google Search as a RAG. You can use Perplexity as a RAG as well. And you can use that to get interesting and insightful domain knowledge to bring into your content to create more factuality and get your way to better outputs. We will be building something that wraps all three of these components together, and we'll be announcing it. I don't want to say too much more about it than that right now, but we'll be building something really powerful that will be coming out in the new year. The last lever to pull in is fine-tuning, and fine-tuning is a very powerful way to create the right style content, to basically teach the LLM how to construct sentences. When you think about a large language model like OpenAI, ChatGPT, people are using it for many different purposes. Some people are using it to write social media content. Some people are using it to write SEO content. Some people are using it to write scripts, right, for podcasts, and everything in between. Some people are trying to use it for scientific literature. They're trying to use it to simplify and digest data. So my point is that those large language models are not calibrated or fine-tuned to this particular application. And remembering something important, that this is an equation we're trying to beat. We're trying to beat the page quality algorithm. If we want to beat the page quality algorithm, we need to understand what is the actual language specifics that they're studying. What are the attributes of language that they are trying to quantify and analyze? And so we want to fine-tune our model's behavior to create that content in the most optimized way possible, okay? In addition, we can also bake in our brand voice into that fine-tuned model. We can teach the model about our brand and how our brand likes to talk about itself, teach it about our brand's products. And so part of creating excellent content is unifying all three levers, all three pillars, and that's how we get our way to better content outputs, okay? So we will actually take a break now from the informational content. We're going to skip this, and I'm going to go jump into questions. So let's see what questions we have. So looks like a couple of people are running it, and they're not getting results inside the tool. It could be just the system is being overwhelmed. I'm not sure how many people are running queries, but I'll check with the engineering team on that to make sure that the report's processed. So if you don't have the data in your account, maybe just check back in about an hour or so, and probably by then the engineering team will be able to figure out what's going on there. Michael Parker says, this is why Yelp ranks so high on those lists, for sure. Yelp actually is really powerful because it brings together multiple different businesses. And so a lot of times in the context that Google believes the users are looking for is they're not looking for one answer. They're looking for multiple answers. And they want those answers to have reviews. And those reviews should have unique perspectives where people say, in my experience, like Manick's roofer was an amazing roofer. He gave me all the right recommendations and did an amazing job. From my experience, actually, I didn't have any good luck with this vendor. It didn't work out the way I wanted to. They want to see unique perspectives. And a lot of times those aggregators have the best quality perspectives out there. There's also a reason why Reddit is able to rank so well. Built Business Online, thanks for the question. You're asking how many Scholar credits are in each tier of Search Atlas. I believe the way that we're doing it is so in order to create the opportunity for you guys to use Scholar without any additional costs, what we're doing is we're using existing Content Genius quotas. So Scholar and Content Genius will share those quotas. So if your team is really heavy 1 month on content analysis, you guys can use your quota for content analysis. If the next month you guys are now trying to AI generate more content, you guys can shift your quota out of that into the AI content generation side. So this is a nice way that we're allowing you to really, if you want to really focus on the Scholar side, you can do that. If you want to focus on the content AI generation side, you can do that too. So we're trying to give you guys flexibility there. Hopefully you guys appreciate that, because it's going to give you guys more quota to use Scholar if you really want to use it a lot. Okay. If you guys have any other questions, just pop them into the live chat. Again, I apologize about the disruption in our live stream today. Very unfortunate that the power just decided to die at that time. Probably Google are trying to sabotage the learning here, right? They don't want you to know all this stuff, and they want to block us from putting Scholar out there. I'm kind of kidding. Actually, to be totally truthful, I do think that Google value and appreciate people creating higher quality content for the search engine. And so a lot of what Scholar is doing is it's trying to help us understand, how do we get there? I think the guidance that they give, if you look at any of the core algorithm updates, they just don't tell us enough about what they're looking for. And so what we're trying to do here is use the research that we're able to divine from the patents that they're filing to really understand how are they looking at this algorithm, so that we can then deliver something comparable and similar to that, so we can grade our content just the same way that their page quality algorithm works. Okay. All right. I saw another question from Michael. He asks, doesn't Google take the data out on GBP images? Well, they definitely evaluate those images. What they do is they save those images to disk, right? And then when they're saved to disk, they're able to look inside the metadata of the images. Those images include lots of different kinds of metadata, and they're definitely looking at the metadata for purposes of GBPs and Google My Business Profile scoring. They're also looking at it. If you go to Google Images and you see all the images there, you'll see that there are filters that say images that are free to use versus images that are copyrighted. One thing you can do is, if you look at any Getty Images image, you will see that its use policy is different than the free to use images. The way that Google knows whether an image is free to use or not is by the metadata in the image. How does Google know if an image is AI generated and it's low quality? Well, they're also looking at the EXIF data. The EXIF data on AI images is actually usually pretty empty. And so one thing that is a hint for you guys in your content generation workflows, if you're using Midjourney, spend the time to go add the EXIF data later. If you're using Search Atlas, you just don't have to worry about it, because we've already added the EXIF data to the images for you, so you don't have to worry about that. We're on a quest, as you know, to build the best possible content generation engine for you so that we can beat the Scholar benchmark. And it's kind of like a cat and mouse game. The Scholar team keeps improving the algorithm and trying to get higher correlations with content that ranks well in Google. And so as the Scholar algorithm gets better and better and better, it's also probably getting tougher. And so it means that our AI content engineering team has to keep stepping it up and working harder and harder. And so I'm really excited about some of the innovations to come. We have some amazing, brilliant minds that are now on our team that are helping us advance to the next frontier of AI content generation with content blueprints. If you guys didn't have a chance to see my talk at Chiang Mai SEO, I actually talk about what a content blueprint is and how it can be used as a new framework for high quality AI content generation for clients in different contexts. Okay. All right. Well, guys, it's been super fun today. This concludes day 3 of the 12 days of Search Atlas. Really excited to bring you guys Scholar. Can't wait to hear your feedback on it. And let me know in our Facebook group. We'd love for you guys to post some of your reports in there so we can share with the community and just talk about everyone's content, talk about how do we together work our way to improving the content quality. We're going to be doing more webinars on this. So if you're really focused on, in 2025, on being the best that your team can be for AI content creation, make sure you join those webinars. And for today, that's going to be it for us, guys. Thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure, and peace out. Love you guys. Talk to you soon. And I will see you tomorrow for day 4. Peace out.